The Philadelphia 76ers continue inching back to full strength. The centerpiece in Joel Embiid has returned to the floor. D'Anthony Melton has finally made his return, and we may be seeing the final piece of the puzzle in Robert Covington stepping back to rejoin this team. We finally got a little bit of an optimistic update. It has been radio silence on the Covington end. Since he originally got hurt, he has not stepped on the floor in all of 2024, December 30th being the last time that he suited up for this Sixers team. Not playing very much basketball at all for this Sixers team, which is a disappointment considering he was traded in that James Harden deal. We all remember the affinity of having him his first run in with the Sixers during the process years in which he became a fan favorite. And to his credit, he's turned himself into a pretty successful basketball player since that point. He's had a lot of different periods of time playing some small ball center with the Rockets, where of course Daryl Morey kind of discovered him and became familiar with his game. Then he spent some time out in LA, has bounced around to a couple other locations, but has not been able to make an impact on the Sixers team. And the update that we did have, it came from Kate Scott on the Sixers broadcast, which she mentioned, quote, Robert Covington is hoping to come back within the, quote, next few games. Covington has not played since December 30th with the knee injury. Now, what the biggest note is, or what the biggest storyline here, he is traveling with the Sixers team, which I do think is an indicator that he may be close to coming back. That is something that has not occurred in quite some time, and that is where Kate got this information that she mentioned. She basically ran into him in the press room or saw him in the waiting room and was able to have a quick conversation. From the Sixers side of things, they continue to be really silent, and I do want to note that the official injury to Covington is a bone bruise in his knee. It's a strange one for sure, that I've never seen a bone bruise hold a player out this long, and I can't quite put my finger on why exactly that is the case, but all we can know is what they give us, so I'll leave it at that. A couple other quotes that we had from Nick Nurse just 2 weeks ago here. He writes, or this coming from Kai Carlin here, which is written, the Sixers haven't ruled them out for the season just yet, but when considering how little time is left, it may come to that. Quote, I think we're still trying to get both of them, right? Coach Nick Nurse. I think we're still trying. I think they're getting there on the court, this being Melton and Covington. That's always a good sign, so I think they're still a little ways away. I think there's once you get on the court and go through some stuff, there's always some time that needs to pass, and they got to play against some live competition, all that kind of stuff. So we're trying. I don't think we'll rule them out unless we absolutely have to for good, but we'll see. Melton and Covington have to be able to overcome some obstacles before they can make their return to the floor. Obstacles such as getting over the swelling and getting over some pain in order to return. But with time running out on the season, one has to wonder if they will be able to make that return. For sure, Nurse added. I think they're just trying to get better and see if they are better, if they can tolerate things, if their injury recurs, get some swelling, or whatever the case may be. It's two different things, kind of. So yeah, that'd be the case. So a lot of nonsense here for the most part, but I guess the biggest point to take away from that is the Sixers don't want to close this door on Robert Covington coming back unless they absolutely have to. And there is good reason for that, because he is a value to this team, and he's at a position that I think they could use. Specifically, when projecting forward and thinking about how things could shape out, I think Robert Covington is the Sixers' best bet to match up with a player like Jason Tatum in the playoffs. That when looking at the Sixers depth chart here, taking a look at how things are, maybe Kelly Oubre, maybe Tobias Harris, maybe Nico Batum, maybe D'Anthony Melton now, but really Robert Covington would be the guy that I lean on when thinking about those types of perimeter matchups. That's kind of why he has a place in the league, that it is his active hands, his real deal 6'7" frame. He does not move quite as well as he once did, but still a guy with solid athleticism, and he's turned himself into a much more intelligent, high IQ basketball defender. So I would love to have Covington back on this team, and to add to his full stats here, overall in his career, 10.8 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 1.5 steals per game, 1.4 assists, a career 36.2% three-point shooter on 5.7 attempts per game. And as I mentioned, suited up for just 26 games in a Sixers uniform before being shut down. So for Covington, I'm not saying I'm overly optimistic here. This is really positive news from Kate Scott saying that within the next few games, but the counter to that being that there's not a lot left in that the playoffs are right around the corner, and it's tough to just throw a guy right back in and ask him to play playoff minutes. The sooner the better, and if he's ready for some sort of limited action, I think kind of in a similar way that they're bringing D'Anthony Melton along, I would be absolutely on board with that, but I do need to see a little more before I am fully buying into that actually occurring. But to speak about Melton for a little bit, I think it's going underrated how impactful he's going to be on the Sixers team. And he did make his return finally. He looked himself. He looked sharp, saw a little bit of athletic pop in his game. And obviously he was dealing with that back issue for such a long period of time. Kind of concerning because he was out for an extended period, came back, played just 3 games, and then was shut down for a long period of time again. That is not at all what you want to see. And he did reflect on that recovery a little bit. Him speaking post-game, he said he's, quote, just taking it a little slower, Melton said of his recent treatment. Changing up my treatment and what I had to do and when I had to do it. All that type of stuff just played a factor into it. Taking some medication, that definitely helped my back. All that stuff just accumulated for me to play today. For Coach Nick Nurse and the Sixers, the key is to continue to give Melton these minutes and build him up for the playoffs. With 2 games left, that is the focus for the 3-and-D guard. Quote, I think the main thing I thought is that he looked very good movement-wise, said Nurse. I think he was springy and quick and stuff like that. Obviously, he didn't shoot the ball well, but he took all really good shots. You would expect it. He hasn't played in a long time. He came back for a couple of games, and if you take those 2 out, it's been a really long time. So I think just movement-wise, he looked good, and that's the main thing. So it was good to see him out there, and I totally agree that is the biggest takeaway. That's more or less what I'm looking at with Joel Embiid at this point, that it has been his movement. And he did avoid a little bit of a scare with that knee that looked a little frightening. I think the brace did its job. I have not heard any updates to indicate that has not been the case. I hope Joel just treads lightly from here. He did clock his most minutes that he has in that game, 36 minutes in the most recent victory over the Pistons. But that's what it's about, is you're seeing all these pieces of the puzzle being aligned, that you're seeing the potential ingredients of a championship contending roster. You just got to make sure that they're all on the same page, that these are all guys playing up to their potential, being capable of producing at the highest level on the biggest stage. And that's what is really all that's expected for the next 2 games. That even with all this noise, with the potential seedings, the standings, and by the way, at the time of recording, looking like the Mavs are going to take down the Miami Heat, so which would put a great deal of pressure off the Sixers. They still got to take care of business and still plenty more to watch, but that's a huge positive step for this team. The seedings are going to play out how they play out, but the bottom line is that these Sixers are not ready to take care of business. None of this matters. That none of these conversations are impactful, and obviously the more healthy bodies and ready to compete, the better for the Sixers team. There's one other quote from Melton and Embiid that I did want to pull up. Embiid, of course, his jovial self, sliding in a couple of jokes in the postgame. And this immediately following as well, it writes, D'Anthony Melton, who hadn't played since February 27 due to a back issue, returned and had 5 points, 3 assists, and 3 rebounds, and 2 steals in 16 minutes off the bench. Quote, honestly, it felt great, Melton said of being back. It felt great just to be out there with my teammates, being in coverages, moving around. I feel like that's stuff I needed just to see where I'm at. Melton shot 2 for 9 overall and 1 for 5 from deep on Tuesday, but the fact he was able to be out there is a big help. Quote, he was great, Embiid said. He sucked today, he was joking, but it was great to have him. But he's going to be a big piece, and we're getting healthy. Just what he adds, shot-making ability, defense, a little bit of playmaking too, another guard, I think he's going to help us a lot. The veteran at USC had been dealing with the back issue since New Year's. He missed time with the lumbar spine issue and return, only had the issue worsen until it sidelined him starting February 27th. Melton also spoke a little bit to that. And this is the tough part about back injuries, is this is not something like playing through pain on the court. This is something that very much carries over into your everyday life. And D'Anthony Melton speaking that he was feeling like this pinching feeling in his back, just walking around on kind of a day-to-day. And he tried to push through it and come back quicker than he probably should have, and ultimately it popped back in a worse case. So thankfully, that is all in the rear view, and I think the greater news we're all waiting on is how his body responded to those first few minutes. Have not heard anything concrete from the Sixers. I don't know how that is the case. Again, they are pretty tight-lipped on a lot of this injury stuff, which I see the pros and cons to both sides of that. But the bottom line is the Sixers are a better team when D'Anthony Melton's on the floor. He is a guy who I do believe is complementary to players like Tyrese Maxey, like Kyle Lowry, and a guy that can be maximized in a Nick Nurse system with the switching, with the different zone variations that they're throwing at teams, his ability to slide his feet laterally, get his hands in passing lanes. Those are all things that can be maximized with this head coach. And he is a guy that could be a potential game changer come playoff time when we see how the things shake out from a matchup standpoint and overall what his body is ready to take. So it is a great sign that we have gotten Melton back. I'm still keeping my finger crossed that Covington is going to return to the floor at some point. While signs are not looking overly optimistic, it does make me happy to see that kind of quote from Kate Scott, to see a little bit of buzz of him being around the team. He's out there. He's on the bench. There are some signs pointing towards him at least being closer to that. But again, we got to see it actually happen on the court. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I want your prediction if we do see another game from Robert Covington in a Sixers uniform this season. I am praying that is the case. And while you're at it, make sure that you don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like on this video, and I'll be talking to you next time right here on Sixers Digest. Peace.